Hastings Steampunk Society has contributed a huge amount to the success of steampunk in Hastings. I'd been reading steampunk for a while, and I'd been making some pieces for myself for a while, when one day I noticed 30 or 40 steampunks walking down the street. Who are you? Where are you from? They were from the past and the future, obviously. Found out they were from the Steampunk Society, and since then I've started to go to more and more of their meetings and their events, and they've done a really great job of getting more people enthused and interested in steampunk as not just a concept but a way of life.
Hastings Waterstones invited the Steampunk Society along to help them launch a new section in their bookstore dedicated to steampunk literature. They invited the Steampunk Society to come down and educate the public as to what the steampunk movement is all about.
I think there's obviously something strange about Hastings people because they took it up very easily. There seemed to be no hesitation.
We're always very willing to dress up in Hastings and have a light libation.
We always get quite a lot of interest whenever we're out and about, and what's been very, very interesting, particularly for the Hastings Steampunk Society, is how the general public have actually adapted to us. Obviously we tend to focus our attention on the old town of Hastings because that suits, the atmosphere there is much more in line with this sort of extravagance.
I've been doing steampunk for about the last 2 years now. Been running events for about the last year. I'm the co-founder of the Hastings Steampunk Society. The beautiful thing about steampunk is it appeals to all kinds of people, and today we've had everything from professional jewellery makers to artists to lawyers. It appeals to such a broad range of people. We've got a couple of accountants, a couple of bankers. I myself am a performance artist, so it's really very much across the board. And to top it off, we had a 4-year-old little girl here as well. So,
shall I do it again?
shall we move? For me, the thing that's always encompassed steampunk most is the idea of this time that never was. It's the idea of this Victorian science fiction era where anything's possible through means that are so much more magical than the technology we use today, which we very much take for granted. And for me personally, it was the literature that got me fascinated. Steampunk literature covers such a broad range of different ideas, different eras, from historical to fantasy. Actually, my favourite books are crime novels.
I personally think of the whole sort of slight sort of Victoriana, Edwardian style, to do with sort of Jules Verne. It's all very cogs and everything sort of steam run, and the idea that anything can be achieved. I mean, as you see behind you, we have an escalator, and I know there are two gentlemen winding a cog down below, making that go up and down, and it's splendid. It's absolutely splendid.
I started growing a moustache, and someone said to me, "Do you know that's a really good steampunk moustache?" I said, "Well, what's steampunk?" They said, "Oh, well, steampunk is Victorians' view, an imagined Victorians' view of what the future would be like, sort of yesterday's tomorrow, if you want a better word."
The term steampunk was sort of used to describe that retro future, that sort of reimagining of scientific, of Victorian science, to allow it to be more familiar, or perhaps even less familiar to science fiction readers of the modern era. So you will find books that have clockwork robots, very, very much following the same patterns almost as you'd expect from an Asimov book. But obviously they're all brass, they're all clockwork, and they all have their own little secrets and quirks and tips.
For myself, only a couple of years, really. Didn't know I was a steampunk until I was told. I've been a hoarder of keys and clocks and things for a very long time. Very, very long time, going back probably 20, 25 years. making little trinkets and devices. And as a jeweller by trade, I've always worked with my hands. And it was actually one of my diamond setter friends, after I started growing the beard out, because again I've had a beard as long as I could, turned round to me one day and he said, "Do you know what you are?" And I was like, "No, I haven't got a clue. I'm me." He said, "You are a steampunk." And I'd never heard the term. 2 years ago, I'd never heard the term before. I didn't have the foggiest idea. I just imagined somebody with spikes on their head with steam coming out their ears or something. So I looked it all up, found about it, and haven't really looked back since. And the steam age was born.
Bravo. And long may it continue.
Oh, indeed, definitely.
Decorating top hats is one thing that most steampunks will get into. Nobody will have a top hat like yours. You've had to put the work in, you've had to find the pieces for it, you've had to make it yourself. I find with a lot of the steampunk clothing that I sell, people then take it away and again they customise it, they change it, they alter it. Like a lot of people, I trawl charity shops and places like that and find really discarded, unloved things that can be turned into a fabulous steampunk outfit.
Almost all my accessories today have been handmade by different people within the Hastings Steampunk Society and our guests and associates. This is from one of our local alternative stores, Equilibrium. This was a lovely handmade piece by the Master Steam Mage, who is an incredible jeweller. The choker is from one of our members as well. She made this for me. And it's all just things that we've pieced together over time. The hat was made by a burlesque performer. And yeah, just we're all so much into making our own little bits and pieces. The skirt's one of my own creations, something I've put together. And by combining all these different elements, we look to get something that's not so formal, something that's obviously made of multiple pieces and with different influences, because steampunk allows you to be much more creative.
My jewellery is made probably from about 80% recycled pieces. I like to find things and give them a new life, particularly once they've been discarded and are unloved. So I spend a lot of time searching to find wonderful things like old broken pocket watches, mechanisms from grandfather clocks, old taps, fabulous pair of goggles there, and then I add those to lots of things like recycled pearls and aim to produce something that's got a sort of aesthetic that's Victorian but also modern simultaneously.
We have some cunning, clever people in our midst who beaver away with fine tools, and my entire key ring set, all my keys will inevitably be
It's great fun acquiring
specialist
bits.
worked on.
I have at the moment just purchased a few items, courtesy of Steam-ridden internet, of course, and I'm looking forward to a delivery of cogs and all sorts of lovely brass effects and bits and pieces. So.
A ray gun is of course mandatory of some form.
A lot of steampunks do carry guns, and if one's travelling into the future, one needs to defend oneself. In particular, one needs a handy ray gun, and I always carry mine just in case. One never knows what we'll come up against. Lots of people make their own, particularly the men who are involved in steampunk locally.
Well, this is my latest weapon. This is my discombobulator. It's a 12-bore lock and a 12-bore trigger. The complication is connecting the two together to make it fire, because you're not really supposed to be able to do it for a shotgun, so they make it as hard as possible to do it. But you can see it fires off. Everything else is more or less things you can buy from the internet. The worst thing is the price of boilers that you can buy on the internet now is now going up because of steampunk. It's still under work because of the fact it will eventually steam. It's got a stimulator that's part of its mechanism, which will power up and produce steam through the barrel when it's fired.
I don't have those kinds of abilities. Mine is a bought one, and I do buy guns in for people who, like me, can do other stuff but can't do the gun design and making. Some of the ones that have been handmade locally are beautiful things. Such imagination and such a flair for picking up objects and putting them together in a really exciting way.
Indeed, yes, we'll be hosting our tea duelling competition. Tea duelling is the manner in which steampunk ladies and gentlemen settle their disputes without resorting to bloodshed. So we're far too civilised for all that. So we will be seeing who has the better wits over the table with teacups and biscuits.
I find tea duelling enormously amusing. I like the fact that it's competitive and it's also very, very much done for fun.
Oh, they're actually making odds.
Oh no, please.
I have never made it to the into the league yet. I'm looking forward to my first opportunity, but it's very complicated. The rules are extremely strict.
Would anybody like to challenge me at tea duelling?
What about you, madam, with the camera?
Most definitely.
Well done, well done, well done. Let's give this lady a round of applause.
In it we used tea and biscuits in place of weapons for a more civilised duelling. And two opponents will sit opposite each other, dunk their biscuits in their tea, and the winner will consume their biscuit without it plopping onto the table or falling on themselves, as happened to me in our last tea duelling activity, where I, the reigning champion, was dethroned by a newcomer. Thank you.
Will Lady Severn be victorious? Or will she be defeated by the newcomer? Young Delilah, never tea-duelled before, here she is today, up against Lady Severn, experienced in the arts of tea-duelling for many a year. Will youth and vitality weigh out against experience? We shall see. What you must achieve, my dear, is when place biscuit in the tea, withdraw it, hold it, wait as long as you possibly can before all comes apart, and then consume it whole. And that will be a nom, and a nom wins. On my command, dunk.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ooh. Look at the tension here. Delilah's hands are trembling slightly.
Oh.
Lady Severn's hands are steel. There she consumes. Oh! We have a splodge and a full nom for our newcomer, Delilah.
Bravo!
A clear win. Huzzah for Delilah! Huzzah!
Today is the Hastings Old Town Victorian Christmas celebrations, where all of the Old Town will be celebrating in Victorian tradition, and we, the Steampunk Society, have been invited out to partake in their celebrations. We will be accompanying a very special Victorian-style Santa on a replica of the time machine.
Well, there is a mystery about Santa Claus that is age old, and we don't tell people, but yes, he's got a time machine.
The Hastings Victorian Christmas is a relatively new event. For the last few years we've had different themed events. We've done a Dickens Day and an Edwardian Christmas, and this is our first fully Victorian one.
As it is snowing, Santa's Grotto is now open!
Absolutely. It was an honour to be invited as the Society to take part in an entire town event.
Steampunk is generally a very positive, forward-looking thing, unlike 70s punk, which was quite nihilistic. And I think it's very much attracted those people who are imaginative, creative, who like sharing ideas with other people. So I think there's some really good friendships been forged through it, and I think those will continue for a long time. You only have to look at the age differences in the Hastings Society, which kind of runs from young teenagers through to people in their late 60s, and look at how we can go out together as a social group to see that there is actually hope for overcoming the generation divide. When you've got a great idea in common and you're prepared to work together, then you can achieve an awful lot, and I think that's what we've done.
I'm a time traveller, and I found myself in the 20th century, and I thought, how do I get back? My time machine didn't work, so I stayed here, and I found lots of steampunks, and we're jolly good friends now, and it just makes me feel comfortable to actually be with them and go out and drink beer and eat toast and drink tea in the morning. It's lovely.